Byddwn i'r to, falle bydd e'n goleuo'r siambr, os bosib bod angen tym bach o leini fyna. O'n i'n poeni, bach o anwyd yma, o'n i'n poeni bod ni'n gallu siarad heddi. Ond o'n i'n meddwl, wel, falle byddai'n colli'r llais erbyn y diwedd. O'n i'n meddwl, wel, falle diwedd ddim yn drwg i gyd, achos mae'n dipyn o symbol nag yw hi, o'r predicament i ni ynddi fel cenedl. Nawr ac yn hanes ni. Ni wedi bod yn genedl di-lais, ac oherwydd hynny, di-rym a diobaith. Mis diwetha, oeddwn ni'n cofnodi 30 mlynedd ers streic y glwyr. Oedd yn gyfnod pwysig iawn yn mywyd i, oherwydd pryd hynny des i mewn i weithgarwch gwleidyddol. Oherwydd o'n i'n deall y foment hynny, bod angen i ni frwydro i osgoi bod yn y sefyllfa lle oedden ni yn oddefol, yn gorfod derbyn penderfyniadau gan bobl mewn dinas estron oedd ddim yn becso dim na dam amdano ni. Ac gweitha'r ffaith bod mae'r adeilad hardd na tu ôl i ni. Mae'n symbol hardd o'n deheuad ni i fod yn genedl yn nwyl a grym yn dwylo'n hunain, yn democratiaeth go iawn. Ond eto, i ni dal mewn gwirionedd yn yr un sefyllfa heddiw gweitha yr penderfyniadau sydd wedi bod yn y referenda ers hynny. Dyna pam mae mor bwysig yn y gwir. Mae'r llais yn dechrau cael ei golli nawr bod ni yn sefyll lan gyda un llais a mynnu dyfodol i ni yn hunain. I was wondering whether I might lose my voice before the speech is over, and it's beginning to happen, but that's not a terrible tragedy, because that's a symbol of the predicament we are in as a nation. Our voice is ignored. It's not listened to. That's why we're neglected down in Westminster, in this sham of a democracy that we have at the moment. You know, seeing Dewi earlier reminded me of Grand Slam, so I can say, to quote the 1970s, I know because I was there. I walked those corridors of power in Westminster and the streets of Whitehall and the media studios of Millbank, and I can tell you that we are held with low contempt as a country in Westminster, and until we actually demand a different attitude ourselves, then we will never be a priority for them down there. We've seen it graphically over the last 6 months, haven't we? The Scottish nation stood up to the British establishment. They demanded a future for themselves. And some of us were there with them, standing shoulder to shoulder. And what happened? The British establishment rewarded them for their self-confidence. They already, Scottish Parliament, of course, the most powerful of all the devolved legislatures, the one that is funded the best of all the Celtic nations because of their self-confidence, they're given more power, more tax-raising power, more borrowing power, power over the Crown Estate, power over welfare spending. Look what happened in Northern Ireland. The political parties there threatened to plunge the devolution settlement in Northern Ireland into chaos. And what happened? They were rewarded by the British political establishment. They were given £2 billion a year, every year extra on top of what they already have. And they were given the power to reduce corporation tax so they could attract badly needed jobs into Northern Ireland. What happens in Wales? Wales, the quietest, the most well-behaved, the most obedient of all the members of this family of nations. And what do we get? We get power over sewage. Power over sewage, but not, mind you, power over our own water. We get power to license the taxis that pull up outside Cardiff Central Station, but not the trains inside or in any other station in Wales. We get power over energy projects under 350 megawatts, but not those that are 351 or above, presumably because our tiny little Welsh minds couldn't deal with the complexity of it. We get the power to borrow, but only if we spend it on an M4 relief road that everyone in Wales believes we don't need and can't afford, apart from one cabinet minister and the CBI. In sort of hushed tones and kind of, slightly hinting as if we're meant to be grateful, we're told that we may one day get power over the Severn Bridge toll, so we don't have to pay for the privilege of returning to our own country. We get the right to call this assembly a parliament, though let's be honest, to all intents and purposes, it'll be a parliament in name only. It is a senate of our own aspiration, an affirmation of our hope, and we should respect that. But it's time to turn hope into reality. Most of the decisions that affect most of the people of Wales most markedly are not made here. They're made, in a train ride 2 hours away from here. But hang on, there's good news there as well. Apparently they're going to cut the train journey time by 15 minutes down to 1 hour and 45 to the imperial capital from Cardiff by 2019. Hang on, though. It was 1 hour and 45 minutes in 1977. That's the speed of progress in Wales, my friends. 42 years to achieve bugger all. Don't you think we deserve better? Don't you think that we could achieve better if we're given the tools to do the job ourselves? Over there's a coal exchange. 100 years ago, the first £1 million cheque was signed in the world. This port here was the piston of the engine of the world economy that was Wales. But what did we get for the blood and sweat of our forefathers? What did my grandfather get, who died underground? What did your grandfathers get, that toiled like slaves in the pits, in the steelworks, in the slate quarries, in the tenant farms? What did they get for their sacrifice? We got a few miles of civic pride up there in Cathays Park, and we got a couple of fairy tale castles along the A470. That's what we got because we didn't control our own destiny. What should have been a rich inheritance became for us a bitter legacy, and it's with us still here today. Quarter a mile in that direction. Walk the streets. Do me a favor. When you go home today, walk the streets of Newtown over there, right? Named after one of the worst of our robber barons. It's one of the poorest communities anywhere in Europe that you'll find within spitting distance of a parliament. People there in Newtown die on average 12 years earlier than people just 9 miles to the north in Cardiff. The children of Newtown, by the time they're 16, they're 50% behind the children of Lisbon. That's the legacy we've been given. Go 2 miles east to Tremorva, a part of Wales that was once lit up by a future that was being forged in steel. Children there today are being diagnosed with rickets in 2015. In 2015, why? People ask me why, when I make political speeches, I always refer to our history. Well, I tell you why, because the past is stalking the streets of our capital today in broken lives and in wasted futures. And, if that isn't enough to make anyone angry, then nothing will. If that doesn't make you determined, then you've succumbed to the same despair that is a scar upon our land. If that doesn't spark you into action, then there is no hope. But hope there is, because we're here. Because we're here together. For too long as a nation, we've learned to be poor. We've learned that there is no alternative, that we're too stupid, too small, too insignificant for anything better. But what's learned can be unlearned. We can refuse to be passive victims. We can decide to take control of our own future. We will be a priority. Wales will be a priority when we decide we are our own priority. And think of just some of the things we could do if we had control. If we wanted to control our economic future. If we could regulate our own telecommunications in Wales, we could break the monopoly of British Telecom and give this country the kind of ultra-fast broadband they've got in Estonia, South Korea, and Kansas City, Missouri. We could actually create national insurance exemptions in areas of high unemployment, so we could create the jobs to give hope for our young people. That's just two ideas from one mind in 2 seconds. Think what 3 million minds could achieve if we were given the power to control our own future. The first step is to believe in the power of our own collective intelligence as a nation. Look at the contempt that we are held with. Look at the attitudes that we've seen over the last couple of days to Leanne Wood, a single voice of Wales there in the leaders' debate. You know, the Westminster media, the London media, they manage to be sexist, racist, and classist all at the same time. That's the kind of attitude. Look, obviously the voice is back. Look what they've done. Look what they've tried to do today to Nicola Sturgeon. Smeared her with a lie and a false leak from the heart of the British government. But why? Because they're frightened, aren't they? They know that Westminster is going to have to learn to dance to a Scottish jig. Well, we know a few tunes in Wales too. And, you know, let's turn our single voices into a chorus for change. Let's sing in harmony together, as only the Welsh can. Let's all of us here now join a party or a movement that is in favour of independence. Google it. It won't take very much time. There aren't that many. As Catherine was saying, the next step is the crucial one. Ask a friend to join with you. And ask them to ask their friends. Let's create a human chain to break the chains of poverty in this nation. So next year, we'll turn these hundreds into thousands. We'll turn this Senate into a parliament in more than just name. For a nation that's begun to believe in itself again, and for a people on the march to a future that will be better than our past.
Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi, Adam. Right, dyma ni wedi gorffen am y dydd. Hoffwn i ddiolch i chi gyd am bod yma heddi. Dyn ni gyd fan hyn yn Yes Cymru, pob un ohono ni. We are all here today as one. We are all Yes Cymru. This campaign is not exclusive. We all belong to it, each and every one of us. I'd like to thank the organisers, but most importantly, thank you, because you are the change. You are the change that will change this country forever. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi.